Hello and welcome. I'm Vijay Srinivas. Tamil Nadu has a new government and a familiar document. Tamil Nadu's Finance Minister, Murray Wilson, presented a white paper on the state's finances, something that the new Chief Minister Vijay had promised during his inaugural address to the state after taking oath. The TVK government is pointing fingers at the DMK's 5-year record, just as the DMK did at the DMK in 2021. But beneath the political ritual lies a genuine question. Are Tamil Nadu's finances in structural trouble, or this is a story being selectively told? We speak to economist Mr. Kalaiyarasan A, who has studied Tamil Nadu's model of governance closely to separate the fiscal fact from the political noise. Thank you very much, Professor Kalaiyarasan. Let me begin with you there. In 2021, Palanivel Thiagaran, the then finance minister, released a white paper blaming the AIADMK, the previous government then, for fiscal mismanagement. Now the TVK has released one and there are similar allegations there. You think this has become more of a political ritual now?
No, I would actually see this in a positive light, differentiating noise from fact. I think if you follow the report of, I carefully read both reports. Incidentally, I took the old report just to see of the 2021 Mr. PTR's white paper, which is almost 111 page. And this report prepared by TVK government is 120 page. I think in fact I would see the great similarity in the tone and tenor from both reports instead of I see as a contrast for blaming. Why I say this, in fact we should begin talking about Mr. PTR's report on PTR's white paper, because in fact it set the context under which you should scrutinize Tamil Nadu finance, and in fact this report exactly does, without mentioning that. In fact the report does in that sense. In fact report, the premise it begins in the first line of the report is this report of which appeared yesterday. This report is a transparent and evidence based account of Tamil Nadu public finance. That's the beginning the first sentence of the current report. So I think this report lives with that spirit. Definitely of that, offers very detailed, I would say, an X-ray of the Tamil Nadu finance. One may have a difference with respect to kind of panic sentiment that is being floated based on this report. That is different. It always happens. How do you read the number? And also I have to make another caveat here. There's an accountant way of looking at the numbers.
That's right, yeah.
Fiscal deficit or debt ratio or most of the indicators. Then the economics reading of the facts. It's quite different. So in that sense, is it really serious trouble? No, I would not say it's a serious trouble, but there's a cause of concern. So what are the cause of concern? I would say 3 set of based on this 120 page report. Let's not look at the executive summary, which is just 8 page. If you look at detailed report, I think that there's a more detail. I mean, there's in fact devil in detail, we say, as we say, it's really a more detail of 3 aspects. Let me summarize for the audience. One, with respect to the question of debt and deficit is a first part, I would say. Is it serious concern? Obviously, if you look at the numbers, it's 28% is a debt GDP ratio. Always we should. This is also another the thing that as an economist I should say. People generally look at the absolute numbers. No, you should look at the ratios.
That's what has happened here as well.
Many numbers in absolute numbers would be misleading. 10,000 crores, 20,000 crores. No, you should look at what's the number. Is the size? What is the size of the economy? What's the size of the debt? Is it unsustainable? How do you say? So then there is a mechanism, there is a law in place in the country which is called FRBM Act,
That's right.
Fiscal Responsibility Management Act. Tamil Nadu, it's the national act, and there's also state-specific Tamil Nadu Fiscal Responsive Act. So is that under that limit, this current? No, it's marginally transgressed it, definitely. Particularly the last year, 25, 26 of this. And earlier it was 26, it became 28, which is a cause of concern, no doubt. Definitely it has gone
No, but the TVK government says, I think the debt levels are so high. You think that's an exaggeration?
No, that's a 28% is outside of that the limit. The limit is 25%. It is definitely 3 percentage point is more.
It's 28.3%.
Yeah. So it is in fact exactly the same.
No, but it was 28.7%.
But in 2021, but it actually came down in between.
That's right.
You look at the terminal years, it came down. 26 it was. Then in the last year, because of the electoral and other reasons, some of the schemes were added. and that actually perhaps should have the number. So therefore we have to see that one. Second, again, the revenue deficit story of the 2.2%, which was actually exactly the same, maybe marginally declined from the earlier terminal year of 2021. But again, you'll have to see the overall internal years, in the years between these two terminal year. Obviously, it came down. Now there's a rise. So now both numbers, I also want to look at this in the historical sense. What was the, if you add this report as an appendix or the additional to the Mr. PTR's report, I think there's a long cumulative story to say. 28% of even the 2021 before COVID is a cumulative one. Remember, the debt is always a stock variable. It's cumulated over a period of time. So then we'll have to see. Obviously, it's a cause of concern, but not to the thing of a panic. Of course, this is because revenue deficit is going up, which means effectively every rupee that you borrow, how much you are actually consuming most of it, and instead of putting that money in asset, which is what the main concern.
TVK government yesterday, they said every child that's born in Tamil Nadu now has a debt of about little over 1 lakh or something. Is there any truth to that?
No, obviously, see, when you, as I said, the number, obviously, if you look at the numbers, obviously it is generating panic. But if you look at in a relational position, what is our per capita income? What is the ratio of per capita income to the burden of the debt? Then similarly, what is the size of the debt and what is the size of the economy?
That's right, yeah.
So in that sense, 28% is above the 3 percentage point. Besides that, if you read too much of that, then, we may think of a panic. But I think we should, this is a cause of concern.
You would also say it's a capability to pay back the debt.
This is the ability to pay is determined by of your size of the economy. So obviously, is 28 is okay? No. But it is really serious concern. It is a concern we need to, because it has been declining for a while. Now it has gone up. But over a period of time, we need to move to the within the limit prescribed by the law. That's actually concern. I think more important thing that we need to be talking today, based on this report, is the collapse of the state-owned revenue. That's actually is important. The chapter 4 in the report talks very detailed. It's a very cause of concern, because again I refer to the PTR report of PTR report of 2021, which actually said the tax Tamil Nadu own tax GDP ratio was 8%, 7.9% or something in 2011. It came down to 5.94 into 2021 as per this. The current report prepared by Mr. Murray Wilson. Now it has come further down to 5.4%. So it is more than 3 percentage point, roughly. 3 percentage point looks like a mild number. Almost become off.
Yeah.
In our ability to generate own tax in Tamil Nadu. What went wrong? That is something that we need to really, really reflect on. See, Tamil Nadu is one state, as we know, is a state which actually was very good in condition in terms of financial condition, was able to generate better revenue, and we were able to do that generated revenue, doing much intervention in the human capital. So it's Tamil Nadu growth model is all about generate good revenue and put that money in health and education. Then that actually brings back better growth. Then again get the more revenue and put back in the health and education. So it's like actually simultaneous virtuous path of growth. But now there's a situation where you seems to be struggling with your finance. Particularly, of course, there is the other part of the question is the central transfer. How much we are getting from the central government is there is this increasing trouble there in the sense our share has been declining.
The finance commission. There's a whole set of issues, whole host of issues that we need to be talking, because our share in the total transfer divisible has been declining very, very, very badly. So that is to do with the kind of formula adopted by the 15th and the latest 16th finance commission. 41%. That is one set of debate. More important, this report talks about is the own tax revenue. Why Tamil Nadu has been been struggling to generate its own revenue. Historically, it used to be good. 8% of its GSTP. Today it became of 5.4%. What went wrong? There actually I want to bring the audience attention as to understand and reflect on, and also offer a possible solution as to what went wrong. If you look at the different components within the tax GDP ratio, the major component that the report says is the trouble is the commercial tax, the GST. And Tamil Nadu being a most developed state and also diversified economy has not been able to generate revenue in GST
in sync with or commensurate with its GDP size. So that is something wrong. As what is it something wrong in our institutions, the institution which collects this GST, or is something wrong with the structure of the economy, because there's some activities within the structure of the economy not in the tax net? So what the report does says is the part of the explanation for the report for the low tax GDP, particularly low commercial taxes. Leakage one part. The most important, there's certain service activities. Tamil Nadu economy predominantly driven by today service sector, 53%. So the report says in that 53%, our generation of revenue in that service sector is not in 53% of the total commercial tax. There's a mismatch between sectoral contribution of the economy and the sectoral contribution of commercial tax. So reason being that, as if you follow carefully the report, that are some of the activities, the financial activities, or some other service-led activities are not under the tax net. So that is something the report is we need to fix, and it also, the report also makes the attributes of this partly to do with the inefficiency of the commercial tax department in the state. We don't know what that inefficiency mean. I mean, only the officials would know. But I think these are all serious concerns that one has to pay attention, because it is, I'm talking, keeping the politics aside of between the DMK or TVK, whichever party. This is the situation. It was actually said, well articulated in the 2021 report, and now in 2025, in the 2026, we are actually saying the same thing in the sense of
so nothing has moved.
So what actually happened in between? So that is a question that we should be asking. What has happened? You actually came up with the diagnosis that there is a problem in our generation of taxation, and what actually measures that last 5 years the government took it, and what happened to those measures is something one has to scrutinize with respect to commercial tax. And the report also says further there are two other components. The report says that are actually performing relatively poor in terms of collecting taxes, and also partly attributing that to the leakages compared to other states. Is one among being the stamp duties, particularly on the registration thing. We all know that property registration, what is quoted value and what is registered actual value, market value difference, and this is partly a reason why some of the money that would have otherwise come as a tax form is not happening. And also the minerals, the valuation of the minerals. So there are certain, even we say it's a motor tax, again number of vehicles is more, but you don't have a corresponding tax. So there are some of this components of our own tax revenue not been doing. Of course, petrol and diesel we couldn't touch because very super sensitive, and part of it there is also central taxation on that. Alcohol is one among that. So these are all some of this. Actually, the report actually clearly articulates that we need to revisit and assess and evaluate as to what even explore the scope actually to fix this serious problem, to bring back to our original position of 8% of tax GDP, which is today is a 5.4. So why this decline? We need to go back, because Tamil Nadu, again I must say, Tamil Nadu is one of the few states in India which depend on the central transfer is very limited. In fact, we are actually proud of telling that we generate our own revenue. 75% of our expenditure come from our own revenue. If you compare with, say, Bihar, it's 75% of its everyday function expenditure come from Delhi transfer, the union transfer. Whereas Tamil Nadu has been historically doing better in generating revenue, but now things are going wrong or not, not in up to the mark or suboptimal, is something that we need to be talking about. This is the second aspect of the report. The third aspect I would like to say, which is the report that mentions again, since because of this collapse of its own revenue and also increasing expenditure, particularly on the revenue side, is creating a situation, fiscal situation, where pre-committed expenditure works out to be roughly 87%, which says a committed expenditure is, say, which includes salaries, pensions and interest rate, works out to be some 64%. And adding that with, say, of certain obligatory statutory expenditure, which is another 23%, works out to be 87% of the total expenditures are pre-committed, which means that whether you like it or don't like it, you have to spend. So then the room for the new schemes, room for the new interventions for the government is very, very limited. Think of, suddenly there is a shock. There is say, Trump actually coming out saying that we are going to put another tariff. So how do you protect your small businesses? You need to provide some subsidies.
Yeah,
so
there won't be possibly any stimuli.
If you have any external shock, natural or human or global situation, you will not be able to intervene when you have a situation of pre-committed expenditure of that level, that magnitude. I think I would say these three important things that is a takeaway for me from the report.
But the pre-committed expenditure you're talking about, but critics argue that welfare spending is investment in human capital.
No.
But where do you draw the line?
No, I think that's what. See, when you say the revenue expenditure is, again, there's a dispute among the economists as to the distinction between capital and revenue expenditure. Technically, revenue expenditure is seen as a expenditure of every day, which is actually of the salaries and pension and
interest
it
payments.
doesn't create wealth, doesn't create
assets. Yeah, that's right.
But the problem is that the definition of asset in this understanding is the asset of roads, transport and property, visible, tangible
that's
thing.
Right, yeah.
Doesn't account of the investment in health and education, which actually large part, except the building, investment in nurses, investment in
those are human capital.
These are all human capital, which actually fall under the account of revenue. So therefore, the distinction between the revenue and capital, one has to pay carefully. We should not overread the burden of revenue expenditure unless you are sure that the additional money that is being spent under revenue account is not being spent on health and education, is being spent on something else, then you must be worried about. But I'm not sure. We'll have to account that. So within this revenue expenditure, how much is new expenditure gone on the account of health and education? How much is actually went in the other direction of the non-human capital everyday expenditure? If it is simply just borrowed and consumed, no family would forget about the government. In the family, you are borrowing and spending without even creating any asset or doing any business or building a house. People would naturally question. So we don't know how much that. So in that account, I would say as long as it is spent on health and education is fine. But I think the report says no, it is more than that. That is something cause of concern. We need to pay attention to that.
Yet another issue that I want to talk here is the revenue deficit. It's currently at 2.2% according to the white paper, and last year it was at 1.6% if I'm not mistaken. Because I remember asking Dr. PTI this question during the campaign trail. But the revenue deficit for 26 is seen at 78,000 plus crore, and it's in fact higher than the COVID years, is what the report says. But as a percentage of GDP, as you already said, it's at 2.2%. So DMK came to power in 2021 that they're going to stick to the fiscal glide path, same like what the centre is doing, and I think there was certainly some kind of progress, under Mr. PTR as finance minister. But what certainly went wrong in the second term?
I think the last year the election year, I think is gone
was
up,
really high,
both in terms of the expenditure and debt, because it was 26% of
That's
the
right.
tax GDP ratio. I think if I'm right, 24-25. It was only in 25-26.
Is it because of welfare spending?
But could be of the additional welfare schemes that were brought in of this last year before the election. Perhaps would have raised this number the level. But I think more concern I would think, instead of reading too much about the debt and too much about the deficit, we should be paying more attention to the
kind of spending we do.
Kind of spending, quality of spending. The second quality, I would be concerned with quality of expenditure and the revenue generation. Why right. Tamil Nadu has been struggling? Why, when historically our institutions are relatively good, our governance style is relatively good compared to the rest of the country. Why are we? Say, let's give one number I want to bring here for a conversation. See, our tax GDP, our economy size is, if I'm right, 32 lakh crores. I think Karnataka and Gujarat,
it's over $500 billion.
Less than that.
Yeah.
And both were less than that. But their GST revenue collection is more than, I think, 80 crore for, if I'm right, for Karnataka, or somewhere around the similar numbers for Gujarat, and Tamil Nadu is 70.
No, but if you're growing at two digits,
double-digit growth, then you should also be able to generate more revenue, right?
Yeah.
That's what went wrong? What is going on here?
Yeah.
I think we need to fix those. If it is a leakage or if it is an institutional failure or other things, we need to fix those things, which could be one on fixing the commercial. So there also, again, we must also have this conversation in the context of larger fiscal room or fiscal autonomy available for the states. In the sense, after GST, states do not have enough power on, I mean, I would say it lost its sovereignty on tax sovereignty. In the sense, it's a pooled sovereignty. Now, if for any changes in the taxation GST rate, you have to go to Delhi.
The GST Council.
GST Council, you have to report, you have to get the right numbers, of those, the majority numbers. So I don't think ideally in any
center has more leverage.
Yeah, so the residual power lies with the center, 33%.
That's right.
There's no point in time the individual state has a power to
That's right.
alter the tax rate. So what's available? Then only thing is you can't alter the rate. Tamil Nadu could do that before 17th, before introduction of GST. So that actually allowed, perhaps could generate revenue on different accounts. But today it doesn't. What it has is the quantum we can do, bring all, activities under the economic, GST net. So that actually it's a cumbersome, and some of the, in fact, small sectors, MSMEs suffered a lot when the GST was brought in. But I'm not sure what is going on here, that the part of the economic activities, it appears that not in under GST net. Otherwise, why would, when economic growing double digit, and why our GST is not being collected at the same level in commensurate to that is something that we need to think about it.
All right. I think, another important matter that's been flagged yesterday is the tangent course financial crisis there. So I think, I think it's ADMK, DMK, everybody have acknowledged that there is a crisis with the Tamil Nadu's electricity about this, but nobody is sort of prepared to raise the electricity tariffs here. Even Mr. Vijay had offered subsidized electricity for households. So why is it? Why is it so?
See, I think, as you know, rightly mentioned, the power. There are two important components on expenditure basket which drives this the crisis, fiscal crisis, financial crisis of loss, the cumulative loss that the power sector is accruing. Roughly, I think 2 lakh crore.
That's right. Yeah, you're right.
And similarly of the transport. So, we need to pay attention some of the history of this too, and the role that both sector played in Tamil Nadu or the Dravidian model or whatever you want to call of Tamil growth of development model of the state. Tamil Nadu is the one state actually historically ensured electricity to every households, much before the many states, even the national. In fact, if you look at the electricity drive that the current government under Prime Minister Narendra Modi came is very recently, whereas Tamil Nadu achieved 90% of the electricity in 70s, and this also partly tied with the social reform movement of the state, that every household should be entitled to have electricity, and no kids should suffer from not having electricity for their education. Like education and electricity were tied in that sense. So then, how did the Tamil Nadu achieve that? There is something called cross subsidization. In the sense, you tax the industry, keep the tariff for industry high. Today, it's I think 9-10 rupees.
So tax the rich,
take the rich, and
take
the subsidize the poor. That's a model in a way of the cross subsidization in simple economic terms. In that model, because of electoral compulsion, you kept adding more layers. The poor, you defined someone else yesterday, some sort of both. Then you added farmers. Earlier you added only select farmers, then you added other farmers. So you kept adding on the welfare beneficiaries. Then beyond a point, it became difficult of this cash subsidization that you collect from the industry is not enough to pay the actual cost, generational cost and distributional cost of the power. So then what you do? So then you will have to infuse every time these are all PSUs. Then every time this PSUs goes default, then you have to infuse some capital and money guarantee or something. So then the government floated multiple mechanism instruments to make this something function. Partly one way would to rationalize this subsidy regime, in the sense at least ensure that the better off one who actually benefits should pay the electricity that they are consuming, and only the poor and the needy should get, which is very difficult. Anything you add a welfare scheme, once you add it, it's very difficult to make sure. There's a report, in fact, Professor Arvind Subramaniam team has actually come out with a very, I think it's submitted to the government of Tamil Nadu, the last government, that to do a reform. And also the many individual report entities have come out saying that how to, what kind of reform that the power sector is. So I think there's serious concern there. The sense it is historically was definitely a very progressive And I would say it's the most transformative idea of cross subsidization, ensuring electricity to all. But I don't know whether it does the same job today. It needs definitely a change. So in order to ensure, at least, because if you take some resource off from here, you can actually utilize in other sector. So I think that's something that this report mentioned, but doesn't offer what's the way out.
Solution, yeah.
So again, a political will. This is very electorally, politically is a very sensitive domain. Similarly with the transport. Transport also, again, Tamil Nadu is the first few states in country nationalized transport in 70s. Purpose again is
mobility is seen as
again, ensure every village will have access to transport. The rural-urban distinction was somewhere abolished in that sense. Right. There was a lot of mobility of goods and services and people, which actually were good for Tamil Nadu. That had a transformative effect on the of mobility of people. But does the transport play the same role today? And people are, I don't know whether the kind of people, the composition of people who are using public transport is remain same. No, I think it's now there's a private transport, two-wheeler, four-wheeler, a lot of things have come up. So is it that correct to have a same level of subsidy regime? Should we rationalize it or should we reform? I think the both sector needs a dispassionate, rigorous analysis, and also a policy intervention, which is a very bold policy intervention. I think the current government is capable of doing those interventions to make sure that this sector sustains on their own and doesn't take money from the public exchequer. I think that's a one way you can solve the problem. Taxpayers' money.
That's right. Okay. So, and another important point is, I think this is quite interesting, the demographic dividend. So, it's an opportunity, not a certainty, but I think Tamil Nadu seems to not have that this time because of the state aging faster than almost all the Raja states in India. So, and which means I think that the state has to brace itself for more pension and, and healthcare amid low taxpayers there. So what do you think the state should be focusing on right now?
No, this is a serious concern again, which is basically Tamil Nadu aging before it became richer.
That's right, yeah.
This aging is a part of the global process. Most of the advanced countries today, Europe or most of the advanced are aging. Because Tamil Nadu is one of the few states, like after Kerala, which actually controlled its population. Less than replacement rate for a long time of population. TFR, total fertility rate, has been less than 2% for a long time, number for a long time. So that as a result, obviously we could do one level population control, and also because of our medical intervention, our health interventions, our longevity also gone up. The life expectancy. So both factor actually played active role in interactive role in this demographic transition, which is one level seen as a good, but it is also a problem in the sense you have dependency population goes up. That's what the report clearly says. If I'm right, it goes from 21% to 20% to 11% to 21. I don't know the exact number. Basically, the dependency population on the working population. As the working population sinks, then the revenue generation and every activity, then you have more dependent population.
Now every 100 will have 33 dependents.
The moment you have a more dependency, obviously you are bringing new set of issues, and those dependents have to be subsidized. Like think of family.
That's right. Yeah,
in a family, if you have two elders and two kids, obviously there will be two breadwinners to manage the family. So if there's no two breadwinners become one breadwinner, then of the one salaried guy, then obviously one salaried guy managing the 5 members of family is difficult. Same way think of economy. The number of people who actually earn money and number of people who are dependent on those earning money is a concern. Then one has to. So I think that is a problem, but this happens everywhere. One concern here is India, not just Tamil Nadu, India becoming. But the fear is that India will become more. Aging population acquire. It's the demographic transition of aging before it become richer, which is actually is a concern, because when you are richer you don't care. For instance, in Europe, even kids are taken care, every elders are taken care. The state subsidized all their welfare. But today, do we have that capacity? Do we have that fiscal capacity to support our elders? It's a serious concern that we need to think of. On top of that, we are actually, money, one level we are not able to generate revenue, and another level we are actually, losing revenue on the other account. So I think we need to be concerned about. That's what the report says. I think we should pay attention to this.
But is it possible? Because, on one end, you see lots of liquor shops are being shut and, subsidized electricity there. free travel on transport, you think the state would be able to generate revenue?
No, that is one part. As I mentioned, this is not really, people directly connect. Anything, if you say loss of revenue, people think of liquor. But liquor is one component. It's, substantial component in collapse of this tax share in the
GST.
tax share of the tax ratio of GSTP. Not from liquor alone. It is substantially from the commercial tax. There are many economic activities are not under the tax net. Work that out. And the second, even the minerals I was saying, do the valuation well, fix that. And also of the motor tax, there's another, you clean it up. And the registration office, clean it up. You can actually, allow some space there. On top of that, there's also, the elephant in the room, which we haven't spoken, the report also doesn't talk about, is the central transfer. It's also in the Tamil Nadu has been losing its share in the central transfer for a long time. Union government has not been supportive in that sense. Because it's, one may say from the union government, look, our formula is that the poorer state should get more share in our divisible rule. But how long? Is it something you need to think of? You need to incentivize the states which actually deliver, incentivize the states which are paying tax. And because those states have a different set of problems.
That's right.
So if the poorer states have a different set of problems, the richer states have their own problems of the aging. So you need to reconcile. That is something that we need to have a longer conversation, a very much broader conversation. And that is something is not taking place. Another thing, again, the tax, with respect to how to distribute the divisible pool among the states. Another concern is even the size of the divisible also is based on the tax collection. One is the indirect tax collection and there is a direct tax collection. Most of the direct tax collection fall under the union government, which is your income tax and your corporate tax. And the union government doesn't discuss with any state government before it gives offers. So I think they should do that because it is legitimately union government doesn't have its own jurisdiction. If the corporate tax comes from the states, or income tax, it comes from the same jurisdiction. So therefore, when you take a decision on it, which has an implication for the rest of the country, then you should take a conversation. You should have a conversation on those things. So this is the other set of issues. One is to fixing your own revenue. Second is actually fixing the size of the transfer that supposed to come from the union, because Tamil Nadu has been losing its share for a long time.
That's right. Yeah.
So I think we need to fix both for addressing this issue.
All right. Thank you very much, Professor Kalaiyarasan. It's a pleasure talking to you. Thank you.